Samantha, thanks for joining us today. Now, Samantha, I wanted to ask, as a construction business, there's a lot of challenges and I suppose high risk issues that go on from a day-to-day perspective. How do you manage that across multiple countries and locations across the globe?
Coordination of a team. So we've got health and safety managers in each of the business units, so that's each geographical location. It's absolutely key that you have that coordination happening. You know, we've got different legislation, but we've got different practices, different work methods, different languages, huge language barrier in some of the countries that we operate in. So what we need to do is make sure that any strategies we have at a corporate level can be easily morphed or translated into each region, so we can still have the same goal but maybe just a different way of doing it. You can't be hung up on a rigid framework. You've got to have flexibility. You still have the same end goal, but how each of the different regions gets there is a different path. The other thing that we have to bear in mind as well is the personalities involved. You know, some countries, just the way that you talk to people is completely different. The risk that we have, you know, we're multidiscipline construction companies, so we might have a huge marine jetty project in one country, or it might be a level crossing removal somewhere else. So again, you've just got to be flexible in your approach to everything.
So can I ask, say in Australia or the US or some of these more developed countries themselves, how does that differentiate when you go into some of these more up and coming countries where, you know, their rules, their regulations are pretty non-existent in some instances? How do you take on board the safety culture for the team and the people working for you?
So we work to the same safety culture. It doesn't matter if you are in Australia or if you're in, Indonesia or somewhere where they maybe don't have the same strict regulations. As a company, everybody works to the same high level. We move people around as well, so we want our people who are working in Thailand or Indonesia to be able to then go and work on a project in Singapore or New Zealand or even Australia. So they have to be absolutely across the safety regime that we have at an Australian level.
And the programs that you've got with people from coming into the business as maybe as a contractor working for the business itself, right through to sort of full-time and corporate employees, is the program kind of similar right across the board, or it does change from sort of employer-employee based on what they're doing with the business?
It depends on the actual contractor that's coming in. If they're a specialist contractor, a marine contractor wouldn't necessarily have to know the ins and outs of working, alongside a rail track. But apart from that, we treat our subcontractors the same. We've got safety training videos that we have on a CodeSafe platform where you just scan the QR code and you can have a look at, rail safety, for instance. We do engagement workshops with our subcontractors. They're expected to follow our processes. We've got a health and safety management system that we use, and they're expected to follow that. And that's very clear to them in the tender stage as well. We don't want to bring people on board a project if they haven't already understood our expectations as a company.
And we mentioned before around the different legislations that you are facing in these countries. How are you as a business making sure that you're on top of that? Because there are so many changes occurring on a daily, weekly, monthly occasion from time to time. So to keep up to speed on that from state to state, from country to country, it must be huge. So frustrating and a huge one.
Yeah, it is. So we've got different levels. So sitting at the corporate level, I get alerts. I get industry alerts. We get alerts from database operators, when legislation changes. We've got general counsel who's across that as well. Then within each business unit, within each country, we have a health and safety team. So again, they're across the legislation. And it's communication. If you're not on top with your communication across the group, it will all fall over. So the minute that we're aware of any changes, that cascades all the way down, to our health and safety teams and then out onto the project. So it's something you just have to try and keep track of.
And how do you get these guys buying into your overall safety culture?
Engagement workshops, training, education, us learning from them as well. We're really strong on the education piece, and that is a two-way stream. So there's no point in us rolling out a training if we haven't actually spoken to everybody involved to work out what is it that we need to, train people on or increase their knowledge on. So that's a real two-way communication. that's basically it. You just have to absolutely keep talking with everybody, and it's multiple points of contact with people. You know, it's everything from site visits to, you know, basic emails, picking up the phone, talking to people in the corridor. You just have to be completely engaged at all levels.
Now tell me, you're doing some exciting stuff around this corporate HSEQ project. Tell me a little bit more about that.
So we've got several things happening at a corporate level. So we've got our CodeSafe platform, which is our QR code, where we have information. It can be everything from permit to work to training videos. You scan the QR code, you go on the platform, you can access it. That's available to all of our subcontractors, our clients. We're sharing that. We're not keeping any IP on that. We have this subcontractor engagement program that we run as well. So we run workshops on safety culture with all of our subcontractors and our workforce as a whole. We tie that in. We do resilience sessions at corporate office. We've just got many different things on the go at the same time. Again, with the view that if you can have multiple touch points, then some of that information will stick and can then flow on. And, you know, the idea is we want people who work on our projects to then go forward within the construction industry as a whole and actually then spread that knowledge. We're not, you know, precious about it. We're not keeping it all in-house. We just want that information to flow out across the industry.
And you look at the use of technology and data within the business itself.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're utilising that on massive lengths across the globe.
Yeah.
But how are you finding video for the workers themselves?
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, video is the key to a lot of it. You know, we have people, again, we've got different language barriers, we've got different levels of education, you know, school education, and video everybody relates to. It's easy for people to watch a video and understand what we're asking them. We're just about to start looking at virtual reality as well. I think that would be a tool of the future that we can get into. How fantastic to give somebody the opportunity to learn about the risk of what they're doing and make mistakes in a safe environment. So that's something we want to start looking at.
Yeah, so is that something that, you know, you are going to be rolling out pretty soon for the business itself, or it's sort of...
It won't be soon. It's still early stages. You know, we're having a look at it now. We're trying to work out how we could use that within the business, what the framework would be, because again, it has to work across our whole business globally. So it's early stages, but I would anticipate within the next 12 months we'll have something along those lines.
And also the sustainability across the entire group. Tell me a little bit more about that and you know, what your sort of plans are moving forward within that space.
Yeah, so sustainability is extremely important to us as a company. I know a lot of companies say that, and then, you know, it's hard to set your goals around it. So we see health and safety forming part of the sustainability development goals. I think that's goal number 3 is all about, you know, health and well-being, looking after your workers. Sustainability as a company, you know, there's every facet of it, whether it's the employee wellness, whether it's engagement, it's our social responsibility, especially as a construction company. You know, we go in and do projects where it may involve initially, you know, you might have to tear buildings down or whatever it is you're doing. You're then constructing something new. You then have to reinstate the landscape. But it's about giving back to the community whilst you do that. You know, whether that is local employment for people, whether it's donations to charities, whether it's working with the schools. We do a lot of work with children. They can come to the project site and see what's happening. So sustainability to us is it's huge. It touches on most aspects of what we do as a company.
And mental health claims are obviously a big thing, particularly around the sort of stress side of you know, workers themselves. Are you finding that's a kind of a similar challenge across the board on a global level, or are you finding it more so in certain countries than others?
Yeah, we're finding it more in Australia and New Zealand, I have to say. Southeast Asia hasn't been as much of an issue for us at the moment, but I think that will follow. You know, Southeast Asia, they tend to have a lot more family support there, just the way that the communities are put together. It is something I think we'll start to see more in our other regions we operate in. Australia and New Zealand, you know, we're just starting to really look at the whole mental well-being side of the business. We're not very advanced there, I'll be honest. You know, we're just starting that path. I know other companies, Laing O'Rourke for instance, have done an awful lot of work in that space, and we're looking at what they've done to see how we can replicate that and improve upon that for our own business.
It's an interesting topic there, and again, like you said, it is interesting to see from Australia's perspective, sort of, you know, how far ahead we are within that space versus some of these other countries as well.
Yeah.
Now, your passion, obviously, you've been in the industry now for quite some time. How did you find yourself in the construction sector?
Oh, crikey. I come from an insurance and a risk background, so I've always worked in the insurance market, working for brokers. I came over to Australia from the UK, that would be about 20 years ago, roughly. My first job was in an insurance company. McConnell Dowell, who I work for, then came and asked me to come and work for them to manage their insurance program. So I got into construction that way. Being risk-based, and you know, when you look at health and safety, it's about people and it's about risk. I sort of transitioned through workers' comp claims, and then probably about 4.5 years ago, just sort of had gradually moved and then moved into the EGM role for the health and safety and
how are you finding
quality.
that transition?
Yeah, it's surprisingly easy. You know, I had some people say to me, how are you going to manage if you don't know the ins and outs of the legislation and the regulations? But health and safety isn't about that. It is absolutely about people and people risk. So it's been great to be in this role, and you know, I've had to learn all the compliance and the regulation side of things, but I think you have to put that to one side more often than not. If you can get the people and the understanding of risk right, then the compliance follows naturally anyway. So it has been a journey. I've had to learn an awful lot, but you know, I've got a fantastic team. Because it is a global role and I'm reliant on people in other countries for their local legislation, you know, as long as I've got a good team with me, then it works.
Well, Samantha, thanks for joining us today on the Executive Insight series. Been great to hear your thoughts and your insights, and I wish you all the best for the rest of the year.
Thank you.